Hello internet friends, in this video I'm going to talk about the eternal question of whether or not you should open your toys and collectibles or keep them carded. It's actually a much more complicated question than I thought it was until I started researching this video. There are many reasons why people open things or keep them carded. One of them that comes up is this idea, I think probably for people who aren't collectors, they think that the question is the difference between, well, do you want to admire them on the wall or do you want to play with them? Most adult collectors don't actually play with their toys. If you do, then I'm not judging, and absolutely you do you. But when we talk about playing as adult collectors, it's generally rearranging a collection or creating a diorama with your toys. Now, some people have the space to do that. It's an issue for people like me who don't have a lot of space. I'm in my study, recording this in my study at the moment, and I have 3 walls on which to put action figures, and I have very little floor space. I've got 1 cabinet in the corner for items that won't go on walls. But once I take them out of the packages, I lose the hooks, I lose the ability to put them on pegs as they are in shops, and I lose a lot of basically real estate to display my collection. The walls are very important because I don't have the floor space. I'm always very jealous when I hear about American collectors because a lot of American houses come with basements as standards. That doesn't really happen in the UK. Most UK houses don't have a basement. I do a lot of retro collecting, so a lot of my interest in things is to do with memory. And I was listening to a podcast that was talking about the way different people's memories work, and I would extend this to say emotion as well. Memory for some people is very much connected to an object, and that's why they collect. So they can't access the memory, the emotion associated with the memory, unless they can either see the object or touch the object. It's an example of how all our minds work differently, and how we interact with an object and think about an object, feel about an object can be different from person to person. So for me, I don't need to physically touch the object to get the kind of feeling, positive feelings I get from collecting, but someone else might have to. The answer might be obvious to them. Keeping it in the box, keeping things carded, might actually lock them away from the feelings that they want to get from having these items. They need to touch them. They need that tactile interface. There are aesthetic considerations to think about. What looks the best to you on display? Do you like things in dynamic poses? Do you like to light them dynamically? Are you interested in action figure photography, for instance? Well, you can't do any of that if you keep things carded like I do. There's also the fact that for me, I want the sense of a toy shop. So the best way to do that is to keep things in packages and have them on pegs and have them stacked as they would be in a toy shop. That's the kind of connection to that kind of memory is something that very much speaks to me and something I want to reproduce. So just being surrounded by the objects for me kind of triggers the positive feelings that I want from the collecting. I don't necessarily need to take them out of the box. I suppose in one way, am I lucky or sad in that respect? I feel lucky. You know, this is my study. And when I want to feel imaginative, creative, I want to feel positive, I'm surrounded by the objects that make me feel that way. And I don't think I would get much more of that feeling from opening. In fact, I would get less of it because I actually want that toy shop feeling. So for me, the keeping them carded is essential to reproducing that. Totally different from someone else, and those feelings might be triggered in a completely different way. Cost is also a factor. I listen to a lot of Star Wars podcasts, although I don't collect Star Wars action figures anymore. I like hearing from the people who do. And a lot of those people, when they're buying modern, buy one to open and one to keep carded. And that's great if you can afford to do that. But let's be honest and frank, we don't all have the funds to do that. And even if we have the funds to do that, maybe our significant others would see that as frivolous for whatever reason. We can't all do that. Connected with the cost as well is the potential value of things in the future. So I don't collect to sell things on. I've done a little bit of it with grabbing things that I think might be rare in the future. So I've kind of got them if I do decide to sell them, but I'm definitely not thinking like this collection is to be sold. It's, you know, to feel good. But if you're thinking about future value and what things might be worth, then taking them out of the packages is perhaps one of the few objective truths we can state when we think about this topic, in that they will definitely go down in value if you take them out of the package. So if that's a consideration for you, it's something definitely to think about, whether you're going to take these things out of the package or not. I think ultimately it comes down to personal choice, as we knew at the start of this video, but it's sometimes interesting to talk about all of the issues because we don't think about all the issues. The truth can be clear to us until we hear someone else's opinion, and I've enjoyed researching this and looking at blogs and looking at what people have to say about this issue, and it's opened my eyes in terms of, yeah, we're all going to be different, whether it's opening or keeping things closed. When you come across another collector, you'll see their passion for a particular thing that doesn't resonate with you at all, but you get the sense of where they're coming from and they open your eyes. One thing I would say though, when we go into the realms of vintage collecting, things from the 80s and 90s, I think that is a different kettle of fish. That's a finite resource. They're not new items being released now, and I would be someone who's very much on the side of, if you get a mint carded thing that is vintage, sealed in some way, I think at this point, 30, 40 years on, when these things are valuable, it's worth keeping them in that condition. It would be a shame to take something that is carded or mint and open it at this late stage, because you can also always get a version that isn't opened for a lot cheaper if that's what you intend to do. Now, if you're doing nefarious things like taking weapons out of packages in order to sell on vintage toys, then obviously that's not a good practice and that should be stopped. But if you're on the level and just interested in collecting, then those older items, I think we need to preserve them now. I'm the first one to say these are toys and they should be fun primarily, but when we're talking about thousands of pounds and so on, you're depriving someone else of the joy of that item. They're a finite resource, and keeping them like that, I think, is the best option. At time of recording, there are 9 people following this YouTube channel, so it's incredibly early, but I've already heard from a lot of you about where you're coming from with your collecting. You've opened my eyes to things I hadn't thought of. So let me know in the comments where you fall on this issue of carded versus opening. I look forward to hearing from you. Hope you enjoyed the video and it sparked some thoughts for you. I've been Nap Yet, and I'll see you next time.